It has been a very interesting offseason so far with Rangers prospect Matt Rempe getting to train with one of the NHL all-time fighting greats, Georges Laraque. He's a very talented fighter back in his day, and he ended up reaching out to Matt Rempe, and they ended up training together to start this offseason for Rempe there. And so far, things are looking pretty good from what we're hearing in this article that we'll take a look at in this video, as well as just, Rempe getting to train with an all-time, fighting great in Laraque there. He is one of the better and more feared fighters of his, time in the NHL there. So having him train a guy like Matt Rempe there, who is still a pretty raw prospect, his overall game offensively and defensively needs some work for sure, but we know he can definitely fight quite well. So training with a guy like Laraque there is definitely going to help us game out a ton on the fighting side of things there. And hopefully, I'm sure he'll be, training on the offense and defense and skating side of things as well this offseason. But getting to train with an all-time fighting great like Laraque there is definitely going to be a very good thing for Rempe and his longevity of his NHL career. And the big thing with this training as well is it's not just for him to become a better fighter and to win more fights, but it's also for him to be able to be more technical and be able to protect himself a little better, so he's not having to eat as many punches throughout those fights, so he can have a nice long NHL career, playing some pro hockey for a very long time and not have to have, a bunch of concussions or, head trauma injuries, whatever it is, throughout his NHL career. If he can be a more technical guy, he could be a great fighter. He doesn't have to fight, every night like we saw quite a bit throughout this past regular season there. We saw a lot of fights. He doesn't need to fight as frequently as what we saw there, but having that kind of thing in his back pocket there where he can be a very good and technical fighter, not have to eat a bunch of punches there, but just win those fights, get the job done, but still play that physical game and hopefully become a better kind of two-way guy. That could really be a great thing for this Rangers team and longevity of Matt Rempe and his overall health going forward as well, because it's not just about fighting there as well. He can still be a solid, fourth line, good player on this Rangers team in the bottom six, but having that ability to be able to be a fighter there and be that tough, physical, menacing presence is not a bad thing to have on your team as well, to protect some of your guys when things happen. We know there are a few dirty players out there on the ice in the NHL, so having a guy like Rempe out there on your team is not a bad thing at all. And the article is from the New York Post there. Molly Walker, she ended up writing it, but the Post got to talk to Georges Laraque there about kind of the training and Matt Rempe as a player as well. So we're going to take a look at some of the quotes there and kind of the pieces from this article from Molly Walker. So starting off here, she basically says in the article, Laraque kind of saw the fight between Matt Martin and Matt Rempe at the outdoor game there at MetLife Stadium, where he held his own and looked pretty good. Then he also saw the fights though against Nicolas Deslauriers of the Flyers as well as Matthew Olivier of the Blue Jackets, where those guys definitely got some good punches in on Rempe. And then Laraque said, quote, "I was like, oh my God, he's getting hit way too much because he has no technique." Laraque recalled to the Post in a recent phone call. And then after a few fights, his face, he had black eyes and everything. After the Olivier fight, when it kind of went a bit bad, I was like, okay, I have to reach out to him because he was so good for the league. And that goes to show how good of a guy, Laraque is there, because he didn't have to reach out there, but he chooses to do so. He reached out to a young guy who's fighting a lot of these, tough veteran guys who's done that for a long time in the NHL there, Matthew Olivier, Nick Deslauriers, Matt Martin. They've been around the block a few times in the NHL, so obviously, Laraque's watching those fights there. He reached out to a young guy in Matt Rempe who's still in his early 20s there, who, fought in juniors, fought in the AHL, is now fighting in the NHL, but can definitely be a pretty solid kind of fourth-line guy for years and years to come. So him reaching out there is great for Rempe and his long-term health, because he's going to get better technique. They're not going to eat as many punches there and probably win a few more fights as well, which is not a bad thing at all. As a Rangers fan, I like Matt Rempe a lot as a player. He's a very tough guy, good fighter, but obviously him becoming a better two-way guy, but also becoming a better fighter is going to be a good thing for this entire team as well. Another quote here from Laraque, he says, "So what I told him, I said, listen, when the season is over, if you want, we can meet up and we'll do this on the ice. It's way better on the ice than by text. So a couple weeks ago, he texted me and he said, can I take you up on your offer?" Which Laraque obviously did, which is great for Matt Rempe. Another kind of piece of the article here, Molly Walker says, the enforcer of yesteryear, talking about Laraque, and the enforcer of the future being Matt Rempe, met at the Silent Ice Center in Edmonton, Alberta last week for 3 days. They worked for 90 minutes each day, which, good amount of work there on a myriad of fighting techniques aimed at ensuring the longevity of Matt Rempe's career, like I've been kind of talking about there, which was Laraque's biggest concern when he first started watching him. So obviously Laraque, being a fighter himself in the NHL for a long time, obviously watching a young guy here who came up fighting through junior, fighting through the AHL, now fighting these big, tough guys in the NHL who have been fighting for a very long time. These are fully grown men, very strong guys, very tough players, and they're obviously, doing a good amount of damage to Rempe there. Being taught more technique and stuff like that is going to be good for his on and off ice health for a very long time, which is very important. You don't want to see a guy like Matt Rempe who has a bunch of fights in the NHL and then has some off ice issues after his career is done and stuff like that because of concussions, whatever it is. You want to see him have a nice, healthy life after hockey as well. So this is going to be a good thing for Rempe on and off the ice. Laraque also said, quote, "If you look at all my fights, the way that I was very technical. Yes, I was tough, strong, 6'4", but I was technical. I barely got connected, barely getting hits he's talking about there. I never got concussions in my career, which for a fighter who had overall, I believe, 150 fights through his career there, that's not too bad at all. I never got knocked out, never lost a tooth, never got stitches, never got nothing. Why? Because of technique. It's not just strength. It was technique, and he's taller than me, so now that he has all my technique, all my tricks at 6'8", who is going to touch him?" And he also goes on to say, "I'm telling you, the Rempe that you see," and again, not saying that he's going to look for it, but because of how physical he is, it might happen. You will see a much different fighter, Laraque said. Quote, "I pity any of these guys that will have to answer to him." And that says a lot there. I mean, Laraque doesn't have to say any of this stuff about Rempe there. Obviously, Laraque is an all-time fighting great in the NHL. He was a very feared guy in his day throughout his NHL career, but he didn't have to say any of this stuff here, but he obviously seems to like Rempe a bit there. I'm sure I enjoyed training with him, it seems like, as well, from what I kind of read here, and definitely, from what Laraque says here, it seems like Rempe has gotten a lot better with his technique, his overall fighting ability, and for a guy who was 6'8" there, very tough, and already, pretty powerful and strong guy, with all that technique there from a guy like Laraque, who is an all-time fighting great, like I said, that's going to do wonders for Matt Rempe and his fighting side of things. But there also is a lot more to Rempe there as well. He needs to work on his skating, his defensive and offensive play as well, his passing, his shooting, all that stuff needs some work as well. But if he can get better in those side of things there, being a better two-way guy, better defensively, a bit better with his shot and passing and stuff like that, and his skating ability as well, which definitely needs some work. If he can work on that stuff too, which I'm sure he'll be doing throughout the rest of this offseason, if he can get better in those areas, he can truly be a very talented bottom six player on this Rangers team for a very long time to come, which is definitely going to be a very important thing as well. He's going to be a cheap contract for a while now, but having like this in your fourth line, who hopefully will get better defensively and overall game, is not going to be a bad thing at all for this Rangers team. Anyways, thank you all so much for watching. If you have enjoyed this video and you like the Rangers and want to see more daily New York Rangers content, definitely hit that like and subscribe button. It helps with the channel a ton. I really appreciate it. And I do post every single day as well. So if you are a New York Rangers fan, this is the best place to be on YouTube to get daily New York Rangers content. So hit that subscribe button and like the video as well. And also, don't forget to comment down below your thoughts on Georges Laraque, an all-time fighting great in the NHL, training one of the Rangers prospects here in Matt Rempe, who is a 6'8" beast out there on the ice. If he can work on his overall game, though, he'll be an absolute monster out there for this team for years and years to come. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you in the next one. See ya.